The ship of Theseus. The ship wherein Theseus and the youth of Athens returned had 30 oars, and was preserved by the Athenians. For they took away the old planks as they decayed, putting in new and stronger timber in their place, insomuch that this ship became a standing example among the philosophers for the logical question of things that grow, one side holding that the ship remained the same, the other contending that it was not the same. Plutarch, Vita Thesel. Like the ship of Theseus, 98% of you is replaced every year at the atomic level. Just about every single atom that you had last year is gone and replaced with a new one. Did you miss them? Well, probably not, because while nearly every part of you has been replaced, not every part of you has changed. When I was growing up, my science teachers told me that you got a new body every 7 years because every cell in your body was replaced. When I looked that up recently, it's not quite true. There are 2 organs that hardly ever change: your heart and your brain. With your brain, you are born with all the neurons you're going to get, and you can lose them, but you don't get new ones. And how you grow and how you change is the quality of connections between those neurons, or the degradation of those connections. Your heart, on the other hand, does change. About 1% of your heart every year is made anew, and then up until you're about 25 years old. After that, 0.05% of your heart is made. So when you die, you have about half the heart you did when you were born. So you're not totally changed, but your brain becomes more connected as you grow, and half of your heart is made over. Neil deGrasse Tyson says that we are all related to each other biologically, to the earth chemically, and to the universe atomically. We're born with the blueprints that have the DNA that have changed little over thousands of years, that determines our genetics and causes us all to be related. Through chemical processes, mainly the food chain, we're related to the earth. This nourishment allows our cells to be fed, which changes our body over time. And the atoms we possess now are totally different than the ones we had a year ago. And a lot of them come from the stars in the universe. The Jewish religion is one of the many religions that recognize this changing relationship to the earth, between each other, and inside our own bodies. How the earth is born anew every year, but yet it has the same material. The development of Judaism, according to Thomas Cahill, brought a fresh perspective on time. In the ancient Near East, where the Jewish religion was developed, most people had an idea that time was cyclical. Nothing was ever new. Everything went through a cycle of life and death. Cahill posits that the innovation of Judaism is linear thinking rather than cyclical thinking. Instead of a never-ending cycle, there now is a sense of progress. That the next generation is better than the one before it. That these kids look a lot like their parents, and they can be something totally new. They can begin again in love. If we were to compare this to other religions, it's not totally and completely new. For instance, in the Shinto religion, every Shinto shrine should be torn down, completely demolished every 20 years, and built completely new. Judaism is not quite like that. It is the same clay, sometimes the same form, but given a new purpose and a new function. You can see this pattern throughout the Jewish religion. The Old Testament is not abolished, it is commented upon. And then there's commentary on that commentary. Progress is achieved looking at the old and seeing its form and giving it new function. In the Jewish faith, all of this commentary must be studied and continue to develop. The old laws call for a Jubilee year in which all debts must be forgiven. This is not to wipe out wealth. This is to prevent debtors' prisons, to let the community continue fully restored. Even Jesus, as the rabbi, said that he had not come to abolish the laws, but to complete them. I hear this call today from Black Lives Matter, that they are not here to abolish the police, but complete them, to make them anew using the same people and the same uniforms, but give them a new function in a new system. But how do you do that? How do you take the same old stuff and make it new again? Well, the high holy days of Judaism offer a system. First, you start off with Rosh Hashanah, the new year, the celebration of things that can be new. And then you continue on with days of atonement or days of awe where you humble yourself. And the point of this humbling is forgiveness. To forgive yourself and to seek forgiveness and to forgive others. The start of the Old Testament says that there was nothing but darkness, and God said, "Let there be light." In the twilight of the year, we must admit that we are in darkness, and forgiveness is what makes us light. Then we can be written into the book of life for another year. We are the same, and yet with being new in forgiveness, we improve our relationships with one another and can have a progress that continues onward and upward forever. It's been said that when you start a relationship, beware of those things that you absolutely love about the person, those cute little quirks that just make you have those warm feelings of excitement when you're with them, because a few months or years later, those will be the exact things you can't stand about them. You will hate that about that person. So you have to forgive people for these. You have to make it anew and go back to the time when it was cute. And remember that about people. Remember when they were charming instead of grating, so that you can begin again in love. Even people who do terrible and vile things can be forgiven. Even the most evil person was once held in the arms of someone who felt hope by that very child's existence. Terrence Crutchner is the father of the black man who was killed in Tulsa, Oklahoma, with his arms up. Terrence Crutchner's father has forgiven that police officer for killing his son. We must remember that forgiveness is not to allow abuse to be forgotten and evil deeds to go unpunished. Accountability is a huge part of forgiveness as well. If there is someone in your life that you cannot stand and you cannot think that you could ever forgive, or a community, maybe the starting of the process of forgiveness is, how could it be made right? How could there be some accountability so that you could be moved to a place to forgive? What do you truly want? How could you begin again in love? Because what forgiveness offers us is freedom. Hating someone, being angry with someone, is a good way to be imprisoned by their wrongs and their faults. As that famous saying from Alcoholics Anonymous goes, being angry with someone is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. And what forgiveness brings us is abundance, a freshness in life, a freedom that we didn't have before. So to go back to the old question posed to the philosophers, if every board on that ship is replaced, is it the same ship? And if every part of you has been replaced atomically, are you really the same? And I think to answer this question, we must ask another question. have you changed? Let me close with a poem answering the philosopher's riddle, written by Steve Girk. The answer, of course, is that the ship doesn't exist. That ship is an abstraction, a conception, an imaginary tarp thrown across the garden of the real. The answer is that the cheap peasantry of things toils all day in the kingdom of language. Every ship, like a casket of words, bulkhead, transom, mast steps. The answer is to wake again to the banality of things, to wade toward the light inside the plasma of ideas. But each plank is woven from your mother's hair. The blade of each oar contains the shadow of a horse. The answer is that the self is the glue between the boards, the cartilage that holds a world together. That self is the wax in the stenographer's ears. That there is nothing the mind won't sacrifice, each item another goat, tossed into the lava of our needs. Almost, but not quite. Let it be enough. Already, a third ship moves towards you, quietly in the night.